Long ago, in the heart of a distant land surrounded by lush forests and rolling hills, there was a small village called Anekoma. The villagers were known for their simplicity and deep-rooted traditions. Every year, just before the harmattan winds swept across the land, a wealthy merchant named Ikin would return to the village from the big city. Ikin was celebrated far and wide for his immense wealth and generosity. His arrival was always met with great anticipation, as he brought gifts, bags of rice, clothing, and coins that he distributed to the poor. Ikin's generosity had earned him the title, the Golden Heart of Anekoma. But behind his acts of charity was a secret so dark that it could shatter the village's trust in him forever. One December evening, as the sun dipped behind the lush hills surrounding Anekoma, the air buzzed with excitement. Ikin's convoy of gleaming carriages and drummers heralded his arrival, filling the narrow village paths with the sound of rhythmic beats. Children ran barefoot, laughing and shouting in delight as they chased after the carriages. Women peered out from their huts, adjusting their headscarves as they whispered about Ikin's latest generosity. When the convoy finally came to a halt in the village square, Ikin stepped out. His flowing white agbada, intricately embroidered with gold, shimmered in the fading sunlight. His smile was warm and wide, his voice deep and resonant as he greeted the villagers by name, praising their hard work and resilience. "Tomorrow, my people," he announced, spreading his arms wide, "we shall feast and celebrate. None shall go hungry under my watch." The crowd erupted in cheers, and the drumming resumed with even greater intensity. Ikin distributed small trinkets, bracelets for the children, kola nuts for the elders, before retreating to his hut for the evening. The villagers sang and danced late into the night, their gratitude for their benefactor evident in every joyful step. But within the chief's hut, a different mood prevailed. The village elders gathered in solemn assembly, their faces lined with concern. Among them was Elder Onya, the oldest and most respected man in Anekoma, whose wisdom had guided the village through many trials. "Ikin has been generous to us for many years," Elder Onya began, his voice steady but heavy with unspoken concerns. "He has brought prosperity and joy to our people. Yet I ask you, have any of you wondered how he came by such immense wealth?" The elders exchanged puzzled glances, their thoughts scattered. Finally, Elder Nadizi, a man known for his straightforwardness, spoke up. "We believe he is a clever businessman. His ventures in the city must have brought him success." Elder Onya shook his head slowly, his expression grave. "There are whispers that his fortune is not entirely of his making. That there are forces beyond this world at play." The elders shifted uneasily, their curiosity piqued but their hearts wary of delving into forbidden knowledge. "What are you suggesting, Onya?" another elder asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am suggesting," Onya replied, his tone measured, "that we have been too quick to accept without question. Prosperity does not come without sacrifice. We must investigate the source of Ikin's wealth." The hut fell silent, the weight of Onya's words settling over the group like a heavy shroud. Outside, the villagers' songs and laughter carried on, oblivious to the growing tension within. Elder Nadazi finally broke the silence. "If there is any truth to these whispers, it is our duty to uncover it, for the safety of our people." The elders nodded in agreement, though their faces betrayed the fear that had taken root in their hearts. And so, the seeds of doubt were sown, setting the stage for a confrontation that would shake Anekoma to its core. The next morning, Ikin hosted a grand feast in the village square, one unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. The aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice, roasted yam, and spiced goat meat filled the air, drawing people from every corner of Anekoma. Colorful decorations made of palm fronds and woven fabrics adorned the square, creating a festive atmosphere. Drummers played tirelessly, and dancers performed intricate routines to entertain the crowd. Ikin stood at the center of it all, his smile radiant as he handed out bags of rice, anklets, bracelets, and shiny coins to the eager villagers. Each item was exquisitely crafted, shimmering in the sunlight and eliciting gasps of admiration. Children clutched their new trinkets with glee, and mothers sang praises to Ikin, blessing him for his boundless generosity. Among the recipients was Nkem, a young woman known for her graceful dancing. When Ikin handed her a golden anklet, she bowed deeply in gratitude, marveling at its intricate design. She tied it around her ankle, unaware of the subtle chill that crept up her leg. That evening, she danced for the crowd, her movements fluid and mesmerizing. Yet, as the days passed, Nkem began to feel an inexplicable fatigue. Her legs grew heavy, and her once vibrant spirit seemed to dim. By the end of the week, she could barely stand, let alone dance. Her dreams of performing for kings and queens now felt like a distant memory. Elsewhere, Chidi, a prosperous farmer, had received a gleaming silver coin from Ikin. He tucked it into his pocket, believing it to be a sign of good fortune. However, within days, his thriving fields began to wither. The yams rotted in the ground, the maize turned brown, and the cassava shriveled before it could be harvested. Chidi spent sleepless nights toiling in the fields, but his efforts were in vain. The despair in his eyes grew as he watched his family go hungry. The misfortunes didn't stop with Nkem and Chidi. Obiajili, a skilled weaver, had been gifted a bracelet studded with sparkling beads. She wore it proudly, believing it would bring her luck. But as the days went by, her hands, once steady and nimble, began to tremble. The intricate patterns she had woven with ease now appeared crooked and uneven. Orders for her work dwindled, and her once bustling workshop grew silent. Even the village blacksmith, Okonkwo, was not spared. He had received a bag of rice, which his family eagerly consumed. Shortly after, his tools began to break inexplicably. The iron he forged became brittle, and his reputation as the finest blacksmith in Anekoma began to crumble. Clients turned to other craftsmen, leaving Okonkwo in despair. As the days turned into weeks, the villagers began to notice a pattern. Those who had received the most valuable gifts from Ikin were the ones suffering the gravest misfortunes. Whispers of suspicion spread like wildfire. Mothers clutched their children tightly, fearing the unseen forces at play. Elders shook their heads in confusion, wondering what could have caused such a curse to befall their once prosperous village. The village herbalist, Mama Ebo, tried to make sense of the calamities. She visited Nkem, Chidi, Obiajili, and others, examining their conditions and offering remedies. But none of her treatments worked. "This is not a natural ailment," she muttered to herself, her brow furrowed with worry. "There is something darker at work here." The once festive atmosphere of Anekoma turned somber. The drumming and dancing ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. The villagers began to avoid Ikin, their gazes weary and filled with doubt. Yet they couldn't bring themselves to confront the man who had given them so much. After all, how could such generosity be the cause of their suffering? Ikin, for his part, seemed oblivious to the growing unease. He continued to walk through the village, his head held high, greeting people with his usual charm. But behind closed doors, the villagers spoke in hushed tones, wondering if their benefactor was not as benevolent as he seemed. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, a group of villagers gathered around Mama Ebo's hut. "Something must be done," Chidi said, his voice heavy with desperation. "If we do nothing, our village will fall apart." Mama Ebo nodded solemnly. "We must seek the truth. Whatever is causing this misfortune must be uncovered before it is too late." With that, the villagers resolved to seek the guidance of the elders, hoping their wisdom would lead them to answers. Little did they know, the true source of their plight was far more sinister than they could have imagined. One night, Elder Onyad decided to confront Ikin. He approached the merchant's lavish hut and found him sitting alone, staring into the flames of a fire. The hut, grand and adorned with the finest carvings, seemed to exude an eerie silence as though it, too, held secrets. Ikin, Onya began, his voice steady but firm, we are grateful for your gifts, but I must ask, what is the source of your wealth? Ikin's expression darkened as the shadows from the flames danced across his face. Why do you ask such a question, old man? He retorted, his tone carrying a sharp edge. Because misfortune has befallen those who accepted your gifts, Onya replied, his gaze unwavering. Their crops wither, their crafts falter, and their dreams crumble. This cannot be a coincidence. Ikin sighed deeply and gestured for Onya to sit on a carved stool opposite him. You are wise, Elder Onya, he admitted after a long pause, but some truths are better left hidden. Onya leaned closer, his brows furrowed. The villagers deserve to know. What is the price of your wealth? What curse have you brought upon our people? Reluctantly, Ikin revealed his dark secret. Years ago, he had wandered into the forbidden forest of Umyoba in search of rare herbs to cure his ailing mother. The forest, dense and shrouded in perpetual twilight, had an unsettling stillness. Ikin described how he had stumbled upon a clearing where a massive Iroko tree stood. From its roots emerged a radiant figure, the deity Nkemdelim, the keeper of destinies. Desperation drove me, Ikin confessed, his voice trembling. I begged the deity for a way to escape poverty. I needed to save my mother and secure a future for myself. Onya listened intently as Ikin recounted the pact. In exchange for unimaginable wealth, Ikin had agreed to offer the destinies of those who accepted his gift. Each item I give away, Ikin explained, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, is imbued with the power to steal a person's potential. Their dreams, their talents, their futures, all are taken and added to my fortune. The elder's heart sank as he imagined the silent suffering of the villagers. You have betrayed your people for riches, he asked, his voice tinged with both anger and sorrow. I had no choice, Ikin said, his hands trembling as he rubbed his temples. The deity demands sacrifices every year. If I refuse, I will lose everything, including my life. It is a curse I carry, one I cannot escape. Onya's mind raced. He thought of Nkem, Chidi, Obiajili, and the others whose lives had been upended. He envisioned the forbidden forest, the mysterious deity, and the pact that had ensnared Ikin. The flames in the fire pit flickered wildly, as if mirroring the storm of emotions within him. After a moment of silence, Onya rose to his feet. Your wealth has come at a great cost, Ikin, he said, his voice resolute. The people of Anekoma deserve their lives and dreams back. This curse must be broken. Ikin bowed his head, his shoulders slumping under the weight of guilt and fear. If there is a way to undo what I've done, he murmured, tell me, and I will follow it. But I fear the deity will not release me so easily. Onya placed a hand on Ikin's shoulder, a gesture of both comfort and determination. We will seek the wisdom of the elders and the guidance of the seer. Together, we will find a way to free our people from this dark fate. You must be ready to face the consequences of your choices. As the elder left the hut, the night seemed darker, the air heavier with the burden of truth. The flames behind him burned low, their light barely piercing the thick shadows that now loomed over Anekoma. Elder Onya returned to the other elders and shared what he had learned. Together, they devised a plan to confront the deity and free the village from its grip. They sought the help of Nwondo, a powerful seer who lived on the outskirts of the village. Nwondo prepared a concoction of rare herbs and led the elders into the forbidden forest. At its heart, they found a giant Iroko tree surrounded by swirling mist. From the shadows emerged Nkemdelim, a figure cloaked in shimmering light. Why have you come? The deity's voice boomed. Elder Onya stepped forward. We come to end the curse that binds our people. The deity laughed. The pact cannot be broken unless Ikin returns all the destinies he has stolen. Nwondo raised her staff. Then we shall force him to do so. The elders returned to the village, their faces heavy with the weight of what they had learned and the task ahead. When they confronted Ikin, he fell to his knees, overwhelmed by guilt and shame. Tears streamed down his face as he confessed his misdeeds to the gathered crowd. The villagers, shocked and angered, demanded answers. Nwando, with her commanding presence, silenced the uproar and explained the ritual that needed to be performed to restore balance. Under the light of a full moon, the entire village gathered at the Iroko tree deep within the forbidden forest. Nwando led the procession, her staff glowing faintly as she chanted incantations to summon the presence of Nkemdelem. Ikin, trembling, carried a calabash filled with sacred offerings, including a piece of his most prized possession, a golden emblem that symbolized his wealth. The ritual began with a circle drawn around the tree using white chalk. Nwando placed the calabash at the base of the tree and directed Ikin to kneel before it. She raised her staff high, and the forest seemed to come alive with an otherworldly energy. The air grew thick, and the villagers held their breath as a low growl echoed through the trees. Nkemdelem, Keeper of Destinies. Nwando's voice boomed. We come to return what was stolen. The mist around the Iroko tree swirled violently, and the deity's shimmering form appeared. Its eyes glowed like embers as it regarded the trembling Ikin. Do you wish to undo the pact you made? Ikin's voice quivered. Yes, I do. I cannot bear the weight of my actions any longer. Please, take back the destinies I stole. There is a price, the deity warned, its voice resonating like thunder. To return what was taken, you must surrender all that you have gained, your wealth, your status, your future prosperity. Do you accept? Ikin hesitated, but the sight of the villagers, many of whom had suffered due to his greed, strengthened his resolve. I accept, he said, his voice firm despite the tears in his eyes. Nwando began the final incantation, her voice rising in a powerful melody that seemed to merge with the whispers of the forest. The calabash began to glow, and streams of light emerged from it, forming tendrils that reached out toward the villagers. One by one, the tendrils touched those who had been affected by Ikin's gifts. As they did, a wave of energy coursed through the crowd. Nkem, who had been weak and unable to dance for months, suddenly felt a surge of vitality. She stood and began to twirl gracefully, her movements more radiant and fluid than ever before. Chidi, whose crops had withered, felt the weight lift from his shoulders. He knew in his heart that his farm would flourish again. The villagers cheered as their stolen talents and dreams were restored. As the last tendril of light returned to its rightful owner, a deafening roar echoed through the forest. The ground trembled, and Nkemdelem's form began to fade. The pact is broken, the deity declared before vanishing into the mist. The forest grew still, and a sense of peace settled over the villagers. Ikin, however, was left with nothing. His once grand attire now appeared tattered, and the aura of wealth and power that had surrounded him was gone. But in its place was a humble man, filled with remorse and a newfound sense of purpose. I have wronged you all, he said, his voice choked with emotion. From this day forward, I will dedicate my life to serving this village and making amends. The villagers, moved by his sincerity, forgave him. They embraced him not as the wealthy merchant he once was, but as a fellow member of their community. Ikin worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust he had lost, offering his skills and labor to anyone in need. In the years that followed, the story of Ikin's redemption became a cherished tale in Anekoma. It was told around fires on quiet evenings, serving as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the power of forgiveness. The villagers lived on, their destinies now their own, and their simple lives filled with gratitude and harmony. The tale of Ikin and the stolen destiny serves as a reminder that greed and ambition come at a cost. True generosity comes from the heart, not from the desire for personal gain. And so, the villagers of Anekoma lived on, cherishing their simple lives and the lessons of their ancestors.